Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today.
Happy Pollinator Week. So we're, this is really neat. It's going to be, I think it's June 16th through the 22nd. And, we're celebrating pollinators with some buzzing news.
I know. Where would we be without pollinators, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think we're about to find out. We've got Miss Caroline Kane's going to be joining us. She's with the Office of the Kentucky Nature Preserves. She's also a graduate student wrapping up a degree here at the University of Kentucky, but she's a first-time guest. We're really excited to have her on. But she's going to be talking about how we can support bees in our own backyards or on our own property. So I'm really excited to have her on talking about that. And we're also going to have Laurie Thomas on. She's got a Tree of the Week, another one that's really important for bees as well.
Exactly.
We want to spotlight that one. And then we have Miss Pam Snyder with us with the Kentucky Division of Forestry. And Pam's been on here a number of times over the years, and we always appreciate having Pam on there. She's such an important partner for our team over here. But she's going to be talking about the tornado strike teams. They were able to secure some funding to establish some teams to try to help address some of the tornado damage that happened previously. So we're excited to have Pam on here as always, but glad to have you all with us, right? It wouldn't do us any good if you all didn't show up and check us out. If you do have questions for our presenters, please use the chat function. And if you're on YouTube or you're a podcast listener, thank you. But you can hit us up for questions via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond to you that way. But we're really excited to have you all. Renee, excited to have a first timer and some old friends on the show as well. So it's going to be a great program.
Definitely. So let's gear up and get this started. So Caroline, if you want to turn your camera on, we appreciate it. All right,
hey, Caroline, welcome.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, it's Pollinator Week, right?
It is. It's really exciting. A lot of flowers are in bloom. I'm glad to be going to a lot of different places to teach people about native bees and about different flowers they can plant.
Yeah, I can imagine this time of year is pretty busy for you, right? So
Exactly.
Being a bee expert and all, so yeah.
What qualifies as a pollinator? Like what kind of, is there, how many insects? I mean, I'm assuming a lot.
Thousands and thousands of pollinators. Like there are different bees, flies, beetles, bats, birds. Yeah, so there are some bats in different areas of the world, a lot of birds. So you'll see hummingbirds all the time collecting nectar. And then there are some different kinds of beetles, like soldier beetles you'll see on goldenrod. And then something I'll talk about is that there are thousands of kinds of just different native bees. And yeah, and they might be visiting a ton of flowers, but some also just visit a couple, and they're called specialists. So some of these specialists, it's important to plant very specific plants to support those bees.
Cool. I'm really excited about this. Well, Renee and I were talking, pollinators are pretty important, right? Yeah. If we like to eat food, which I do, I think that's really an important thing. So
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and get into your presentation. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And Carolyn, welcome. Glad to have you here with us.
Thank you. All right. So my name's Caroline. I work with the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves under the Energy and Environment Cabinet. And I'm going to tell you about how you can support different native bees in your backyard or on your porch or anywhere really. And so at Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, I am an environmental scientist, so an invertebrate biologist, and then also I am the coordinator for the Kentucky Natural Heritage Bee Inventory. So Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves, or OKNP, we have a lot of duties and generally just responsibilities, and those I have listed on the slide, but we go around the state to secure a system of different state nature preserves to protect them for present and future generations. We try to promote different scientific and spiritual values of an unspoiled natural area or environment. And then we go around and recognize, conserve, and restore rare and endangered plants. We provide a clearinghouse of just information on the environment, plants, and animals. And then we also conserve Kentucky's wild river system for ecological and recreational purposes. And finally, we administrate the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation Fund's natural areas, land acquisition, and management program. Uh, so want to tell you just what the Kentucky Natural Heritage bee program is. And so what we're doing is developing. Currently, Kentucky does not have an official list of the different bees that are like confirmed in the state. So there are nearby states that have done inventories that have 300 to 400 bees. So they know about all of the bees in their state, but we don't know that yet. So we've been working on it. We know about 200, but we're still finding them all the time. So far, we've performed at least 60 surveys across the state, which is going around to some of our nature preserves and partner lands where we are doing timed surveys where we go around and then catch bees. Like we're looking on specific flowers and then in really diverse floral spaces. And we're also doing pan traps or bee bowls. And I'll show some photos in the next slide, but what we're doing, we have visited over 30 different sites, performing different kinds of surveys. So we're doing timed searches, looking to catch different bees, and also these pan traps. Also with this program, we have a couple of volunteers and then partnerships. So one of our volunteers has gone to different nature preserves and surveyed like at least 20 separate space, like 20 different times just throughout the year at like 6 different nature preserves. He's incredible. And then we have partnerships with different organizations, including Flora Cliff Nature Sanctuary and Berea College with the Forest Outreach Center with John Abrams. And so what these people are doing is setting up pan traps, going around and doing these surveys looking for specific bees, and then they're giving them over to us. I clean, pin, and identify all of them so that we can develop this inventory. And all of this inventory really is connected to the larger database for OKNP, which is just looking at the natural heritage and developing and checking the conservation status of the different plants, flowers, and natural habitats throughout the state. So OKNP, just showing you this map because I think it's incredible. OKNP has conserved over 28,000 acres on 52 separate state nature preserves and natural areas. And then there's over 7,000 acres from 18 different partner-owned state nature areas. You can see the state nature areas, state nature preserves, all and this little key at the top right of the map. But we also have 85,000 acres of from 87 different partner-owned Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation sites. And then we also have 27,000 acres on 9 different wild river corridors that we're here just protecting. So we have a natural heritage database and it's inventorying. These inventories are primarily done by the different biologists that we work with to just gather information on the different distribution and abundance and life history of these unique and endangered or rare plants, flora, and natural communities. And then with OKNP, we're just looking at the different potentially vulnerable plants. And so by collecting and surveying all of these sites, we're trying to develop and see what really is potentially in decline or going to be extinct. So yeah, we're developing state lists of different rare species and identifying the biological significance of these spaces. On going back to the natural heritage bee inventory, so the biggest collection we've been doing is doing pan traps, which are these tiny little cups painted different colors, and we fill them with soapy water and we set them out for 24 hours. And then we come back and there'll be bees that were attracted to the different colors and get caught in the water. And we come back, collect them, and that's one of the ways that we're developing this inventory. Yeah, so we're going around assessing these different bees, and we're trying to document and monitor the different native bees and hopefully figure out what bees are rare. So since we don't have a state list yet and we're still developing that, we're going to find all of the bees and then figure out what their conservation status is and what we can do. So a lot of people from my experience, they haven't heard of native bees. Like they immediately think of honeybees or bumblebees, but there are thousands of different kinds of bees. And so far in Kentucky, again, we have over 200 species. Some bees that people notice are these metallic green bees called sweat bees, and it's like their favorite bee. And honestly, they're super cool to look at. But how many types of bees? There are thousands globally. And unlike honeybees, they'll be living by themselves. They're solitary bees, and they'll live in cavities like on the side of your house, inside different, like between rocks. They just find little cavities, or they have burrows in the ground, and you'll even see them coming out of flower stems. So they'll stay there over the winter and then emerge the next year. So a big thing is that these bees are all pollinating a lot of different flowers, and some of them require very specific resources. So for you to have a variety of flowers, it's the best for them to, like, it's giving them the most opportunity to actually pollinate and get food. Why are bees important? As previously mentioned at the beginning, most flowers and agricultural plants cannot reproduce or produce seeds without pollination. So without bees, we don't have a lot of food. And so what the bees are doing is they're going between different flowers and fertilizing them, and then it creates the seeds. So bees have these hairs on their legs and also on the bottom of like their abdomen, which you can see where it shows pollen on the figure if you're watching this. But they have like feather-like hairs, and that's where all of the pollen goes, and so they go between plants. This pollination is mainly done by insects, but also you'll see that different birds, bats, butterflies, flies, and beetles and insects are pollinating these plants as well. So things that bees need, and just that's kind of why I'm here, is to tell you guys what different things they need and things that you can help them with. So they need floral access throughout the growing season. They need water access. You can see in the photo, and they need nesting habitats and pesticide-free habitats. And things that you can do, you can provide them flower access throughout the growing season. You can give them water. You can provide them with nesting habitats. You can provide them with a pesticide-free habitat. And then a really big thing is actually maintaining those pollinator spaces over time. So some flower access to think about, you need to have floral access throughout the growing season. And because native bees, I saw some bees as early as like February 28th this year, and they'll just keep going because there are so many species and they're active throughout different times of the year. So different floral recommendations. There are a bunch of different native plant nurseries and places that you can get native flowers. So what we recommend is that you prioritize having at least 70% native flowers within your gardens and then around 30% non-natives. And the non-natives really you should be using to have like an overlap. So you'll have a gap potentially between the blooming periods of your native flowers. So you have other flowers that just fill those gaps. And a few really good recommendations from our botanists would be having asters, bee balm, baptisia, butterfly weed, which is a native milkweed, and then other kinds of milkweed as well for monarch butterflies, and then pine. Oh my gosh, I have not actually said this flower out loud, so I am sorry. Pycnanthium? I'm sorry, I probably said that wrong. Um, Anyone can correct me after this. So, things that you should know when it comes to floral recommendations. Again, you should always have at least one type of flower blooming. Be careful if you're purchasing different pollinator mixes from different nurseries because they might have non-native flowers in them, and you want to be careful of what the actual native plants are within your area because you want to prioritize those as they are adapted to your local climate and they'll attract the actual pollinators that are in your area. And at the end of the presentation, just want to say that there is the Kentucky Native Plant Society, and they provide a list of native plant suppliers. One of the next thing that I mentioned was what you can do is having water access for the bees. You can have like little shallow dishes that are full of stones because the bees will land on them and they won't drown because they'll land on the stone and just drink water and fly off. And then you could have hummingbird feeders, which is just sugar water solutions. And then for butterflies, you can just have flowers that are like in hanging baskets or something that are really, they have a lot of nectar. For providing them with overwintering and nesting habitats, there are a few different ways you can do this. You can, if you have plants like blackberries or sunflowers, you can, or just thicker stemmed plants, you can cut them down so that the bees can lay eggs in them. And so just save the stems and the bees will lay eggs in them and then emerge in the spring. And so if you have stems, just wait till the last frost of the year before you, like, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Well, don't cut down the stems until after the last frost. Some other ways that you can provide nesting habitats is leaving leaf litter. Bees, I was at a place recently where all of the bees I was seeing, they were all in the forest and they were all bumblebees. So they live and set up nests within the leaf litter or underneath it. Another thing you can do, you might struggle with carpenter bees and different bees that are within like a porch or something like that, and it might seem frustrating, don't spray things on them. Instead, set up a log or something at the back of your property that has holes in it, like if it has beetle burrows, or you can drill in different sized cavities because then they'll actually want to be there. And then another thing you can do is buy a bee hotel. They're available in a lot of different places online. And what a bee hotel is it's basically just a lot of different sized holes. So bees of different species can actually nest in the hotel. Next thing, try to follow an integrated pest management system. So protecting pollinators, a great way to protect your pollinators is by not immediately using pesticides. You want to see what's around you, identify what the pest is, and then look for alternative ways that are eco-friendly and pollinator friendly that can manage the pests and remove them before you use pesticides. So you want to start with adjusting different agro-ecosystem diversity, modifying the habitats, and providing different pest-resistant, like pollinator attractive cultivars. Then it's adjusting the different practices that are physical, mechanical, so that they're actually pollinator friendly. And then you can start using biological control agents to manage the pests. And then finally consider using pesticides. Really, pesticides are a very detrimental thing that you can stop, you can avoid using. Hopefully you can avoid using pesticides as much as possible. And also when you're picking a spot to put your pollinator garden, maybe see if your neighbors use pesticides, because pesticide drift can potentially come onto your property where your pollinator garden is and then harm the pollinators that you're trying to support. So adjust your plans and protect the pollinator spaces that you have. So maintaining the pollinator spaces that you have, it's having long-term protection. Don't just have a bee hotel that you set up once and then leave it thinking that it's okay forever, or throwing pollinator seed mix out and not checking on it. So you can, I'm going out of order from the slide, but something that I found recently was somebody had several pollinator gardens and they planted the seeds at the wrong time of the year. So the only plants that actually came back up were milkweed. And so they need to go back and plant things at the correct time and just see what plants were actually successful so they can adjust what they have there. So check what you actually have that's coming back and consider things that you can replant. But from the slide, it's different ways you can maintain pollinator spaces. A pretty easy one is raising the mower height that you have on your lawnmower to protect the different blooming flowers. So like raise it to like 3 or 4 inches if that's possible, because you'll see a lot of clover and dandelions and violets in your yard, and you want to optimize and give the bees as much time as possible to use and pollinate with those flowers. So try and schedule your mowing and just pay attention to the blooming flowers in your yard to give these bees as much time as possible with them. Another thing you can do is replace weeds and grasses with flower mixes. So you can pull up sections of grass in your yard and set up a little pollinator oasis. And that will also, a lot of the time, the sod that grass is set up as, when it's laid out, the weeds are like within the root system. So when you remove the sod, it removes some of the weeds as well. Then again, as I said a couple minutes ago, you can check to see annually if your flowers actually come back and see what flowers you should add again. And one very important thing is maintaining the bee hotels and the different overwintering and nesting sites, because when you purchase these bee hotels, they have all of these little stalks and stems that the bees are nesting in, but after the winter, they emerge and there will be a lot of material because bees nest with leaves or sticks or pollen nectar blends that just make these little cavities kind of messy. And the bee hotel might be covered in cobwebs. And a really important thing is that bees have pathogens that can make them really sick. It's different kinds of fungi and viruses and parasites. So removing and cleaning out these different stalks and cavities is really important. So don't just put it at the back of your yard, check on it and clean it out every year after the bees have actually emerged. That depends. Cleaning them depends on what one you purchase. So one thing, where you put your plants, people have different kinds of, they might live in a house, they might own a house, they might actually have a very large open space, or they might just have an apartment porch. And so you might ask, what can I actually plant there? And really, a lot of the plants that I mentioned a few minutes ago, like asters and everything, or like bee balm, you can still put things just in larger pots on your porches. Um, when it comes to picking out the different nests and the flower types and just figuring out what you're going to do, you really need to consider the light on your, when you pick out a spot, you have to figure out what light sources you have. So if you have full sun, which is like 6 or more hours of direct sunlight, 3 hours of direct sunlight, or completely shaded, that's how you can decide on what flowers will be successful on your property. And then also use that, like the sun, like level of sun exposure that you have, to decide on where you set up your nesting sites and bee hotels. Really, bees are ectothermic, so they depend on the outside temperature to stay warm and to wake up. So you want to put the bee hotels where you put it somewhere where you have morning sun if you have less sunlight in that area. And try to have the flowers and bee hotels as close as possible to each other. So different eco-friendly gardening tips that I want to give is try to use compost to reduce food waste. And then also you can put out like light mulch and compost for like within your gardens, rather than purchasing a lot of different like soil. And then you can try and set up self-watering containers to conserve water, or automatic watering. So you can see in this photo, the person whose little pollinator garden that I'm showing, they have the drainage, like the rainwater coming from their roof, that's distributing throughout their pollinator garden, making it, I think, a lot easier. And then you can reuse or upcycle different cans, buckets, and crates as planters. And then try and choose as many organic and native seeds as possible. Because again, native plants are better for the specific area, for the pollinators that are present, and the flowers are adapted to your location. Pollinator, one thing again, because I personally have a porch and I can't put things in the ground, is you have to consider what you can really do on your porch or balcony. So setting up a porch, you could put in trellises or vertical planters. You could hang different baskets with nectar-rich flowers for like butterflies and hummingbirds. You can attach the different railing planters on your balcony and just create a little oasis of mixed pots at different heights. So the smaller pots then stack taller ones, taller ones, taller ones, and there's a lot of bright, beautiful colors that specifically will attract these different pollinators. So bees, for example, they love purple, blue, white, yellow. And as somebody that sometimes will go out of town or forgets to water their plants, one thing that others might want to consider if you don't want your plants to die is what kind of planters and pots you actually use. So planters that are made of porous clays and terracotta, they'll dry out faster compared to plastic and metal pots or plaster. So just consider that when it comes to how much you're managing. Okay, but just consider what is best for you when it comes to what plants you're selecting. So how often you can actually water them, and how often you're going to remember watering them. And a big thing, so that you don't over or underwater, if you stick your finger in the soil and it's wet to the touch, don't water it right then. It might be exposed to rainwater and you can skip it for a day or two. And one other thing is picking the correct plants. And I have resources at the end, but one thing is that perennials can have require less water and maintenance than annuals. So cool thing. All right, so citizen science. Hopefully you all know what citizen science is, but it's participating in different scientific programs. And so we have there are different ones within the state. So one of them is the Kentucky Bee Inventory and Monitoring Program that's on iNaturalist. So you can participate in a lot of different programs on iNaturalist. So you can post different bee photos. You can post one thing that's specifically helpful for what I'm doing with what we're doing with the natural heritage bee inventory is I'll be going along iNaturalist to see when specific flowers are in bloom so I can travel to different parts of the state. So somebody posted when they saw a bee on like February 28th, and so I was out looking for bees by March 3rd. And so things like that are really helpful. So post some flowers, post bees. It really does help. And then another thing you can do is participate in the inventories. So setting up bee bowls and helping us at our nature preserves where you're going out when we give you the supplies. You go out, set up the bee bowls, come back 24 hours later, pick out the bees, and then just give everything back to us. So it's not super intensive and I like it. So we're always looking for help. And then another thing that people might not know is that over 90% of Kentucky property is privately owned, and there might be a lot of sites where people might have rare or endangered plants. And so we would like to do inventories and see what's there and see how we can help. And also like survey for bees. Different resources that I'm listing are from the Xerces Society and then from the Kentucky Native Plant Society. So how to make a pollinator garden, different floral recommendations for the Southeast. These are all really good flower recommendations. I had several people go through them. And then the different native plant suppliers and service providers. You can go to the native plant you can look at the Kentucky Native Plant Society and also the Xerces Society, and you can search and specifically, if you want organic seeds, if you want specifically native seeds, you can figure out where you can actually find seeds within the state or order them from. And then there is a great resource about nesting and overwintering habitats from the Xerces Society that I recommend looking at because there are other ways that you can set up habitats and it's a good thing to look at. So if you want to talk to me or participate in some way, my email is caroline.kane@ky.gov. So Caroline, Kane with a K, Kane. People, do you have any questions? I'm glad that you listened and please protect pollinators.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate this.
Well, ton of great tips there.
Yeah, a lot of good reference information, which is always helpful.
I'm always looking at the Xerces Society, and I work with a lot of people that work with the Native Plant Society as well. So glad to plug those people.
All right. I was trying to see if there were some questions for you there.
That's what I was looking through.
A few suggestions.
Suggestions: mow later in the day if possible.
Avoid some of the herbicides. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Good stuff.
Cut sunflower heads off. That's good stuff. Awesome. Thanks. So appreciate you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at the questions. Do you want me to answer those now?
Let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So leafcutter bees and mason bees, they are really important, and those are probably some that you see the most often. So mason bees, for anyone that doesn't know, they're like masons. They build things out of dirt and they make their own little nest And then leafcutter bees, they actually will like cut leaves and flower petals to set up nests as well. So that's how they build their nests. And so they are really important. They are like the fluffy little bees that people might question. They might think that they're honeybees. So it might be hard for you to tell. But having hives is good for like generalist pollination, but I also just highly recommend not just being a honeybee keeper, but managing native bees as well by doing all of the things that I recommended.
Yeah.
I am not a beekeeper, but throughout grad school, I worked within a lab, the Ridgeoff lab at the University of Kentucky, where they manage somewhere between like 30 and 40 hives each year, and they've been incredibly successful when it comes to annual survival rates. So I've done a lot when it comes to honeybee management, but also I've worked on projects that specifically focus on providing honeybees with different nutrition resources to see how that can impact the different viral infections that they have. So that's what my master's is currently on. I'm continuing to look.
I think that might have been.
Just the sunflower one. One of the biggest things, you can also look at the Xerces Society because there's a little pamphlet on instructing this, but the bees will, if you cut the stems basically you cut the stems after the bees emerge in the spring, and then they'll grow back, but the bees will then lay their eggs in the flowers and like pack their eggs in, and then you can come back after the first frost and cut them down again. So like 18 to 24 inches, so you're not actually like cutting the bees, hitting the bees, but also just leave the stems is a good spot.
Yeah. Every one of these shows, Renee, I realize there's so much I don't know.
I know. That's why I was like, you don't know what you don't know.
I know there is so much. Yeah.
So, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and learned a lot. So I really loved that you were on our show, and we'll have you back again sometime.
No doubt. Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Catch you later. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. What a good start to the program. Way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we have Laurie Thomas coming on, and she's going to talk about a tree that bees like. Is that right?
Yes, we do.
Greetings.
Yes, we're going to talk about sourwood. And it is one of those, if you've gotten honey, especially it's common in the South, sourwood honey. And it's from bees visiting the flowers. And the trees are flowering or maybe just finishing up. So they flower a little bit later. It's not a real early spring one. So it's kind of nice for insects. And Caroline, that was a fantastic talk. A lot of wonderful information, and definitely try some of the things she said. We did it back during COVID with our one son, and it was fantastic. So, but
Awesome.
here's sourwood.
Sourwood. All right.
Coming for you.
Looking forward to it.
I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Extension, and I'm here with the tree of the week, the sourwood. Sourwood, Oxydendrum arboreum, is a member of the Ericaceae or heath family. It is the only species in the Oxydendrum genus. It is also known as sorrel tree or lily of the valley tree. Sourwood is a small to medium-sized tree that grows 40 to 60 feet tall and about 8 to 15 inches in diameter. It reaches its largest size on the western slopes of the Smoky Mountains. Sourwood develops a slender trunk and a small crown in dense stands. In more open situations, it forms a short, often leaning trunk dividing into several stout ascending limbs. It is a beautiful landscape tree, and the flowers are an important source for honey production. Sourwood is native to the upland forest of the southeastern United States. Like most of the Ericaceae, sourwood generally does not grow on soils of limestone origin, but is most commonly found growing in slightly acidic, well-drained soils. It is classified as somewhat shade-tolerant. Sourwood is an understory to mid-canopy tree in numerous upland forest types that include post, chestnut, black, and white oak, as well as Virginia, shortleaf, and loblolly pine. Sourwood is a deciduous tree with alternately arranged leaves, as you can see in the photo. The leaves are simple in form, lance-shaped, about 4 to 7 inches long, and the leaf margins are finely serrated, and the underside midrib has small hairs. The leaves are green above and pale below, and fall color is outstanding, with colors ranging from red to purple to yellow, and these can often be found on the same tree. And the leaves have a sour taste when chewed. Sourwood is monoecious with small white flowers. The flowers are about 1/4 of an inch long, and they're kind of urn-shaped, and they're in drooping panicles, and the flowers resemble lily of the valley flowers. The panicles of flowers have also been said to resemble a bony witch's hand. It is one of the latest flowering trees, with flowering occurring from late June to August. The flowers are insect pollinated, thus an important source for honey production in some areas. The fruit is a very small capsule. The 5-valved capsules are between 1/4 and 1/2 an inch long, and they're in those drooping panicles. When the capsules mature, they are dry and they split open and release very tiny 2-winged seeds. Fruit mature in the fall between September and October, and the seeds are gradually dispersed through winter by wind. Sourwood is also capable of vegetative reproduction through stump and root crown sprouting. It is a prolific sprouter. The bark is grayish-brown, it is very thick and has deep furrows and scaly ridges. The ridges are often broken into identifiable rectangles. The wood of sourwood is hard and close-grained. The heartwood is a reddish-brown and the sapwood is paler. Sourwood is not a commercially important timber tree, but the wood is used locally for tool handles, fuel, and mixed with other hardwoods for pulp. The wood was once used for wagon sled runners. Sourwood flowers are very attractive to bees, and sourwood honey is common in the South. The honey has a medium to light color with a heavy body, and it's slow to granulate. The flowers are attractive to butterflies and other insects. Natural hollows in older trees provide shelter for climbing reptiles and amphibians, bats, and other small wildlife. Sourwood is one of the species that is host for the fall webworm tents. The caterpillars in the tents attract birds by providing fall invertebrate food. Flowers are quite attractive to bees, and the honey is highly sought after. Sourwood is a great specimen tree. It's basically a tree for all seasons. It has lovely abundant flowers that open in midsummer and they curve upward, creating a graceful effect at flowering time. There's excellent fall colors, some of the best in the South. The colors range from red to purple to yellow, and the hanging panicles of fruit capsules provide winter appeal. The national champion sourwood is in Amelia, Virginia. It's 130 inches in circumference, 74 feet tall, with a 47-foot crown spread. The Kentucky champion sourwood is in Bell County at the Cumberland Gap National Park. It's 68 inches in circumference, 66 feet tall, with a 32-foot crown spread. If you'd like to know more about champion trees, check out American Forest champion trees or check out the Kentucky Division of Forestry champion trees. Now for a few fun facts about sourwood. The flower blooms resemble lily of the valley flowers, hence one of its other common names, lily of the valley tree. The name sourwood is derived from the sour, pungent taste of the leaves. The Cherokee and the Catawba used the shoots of sourwood to make arrow shafts. Pioneers used the sap as one ingredient in a concoction used for treating fevers, the bark for chewing to soothe mouth pains, and a leaf tea for treating intestinal discomforts. The scientific genus name Oxydendrum comes from the Greek words oxys and dendron, which mean acid tree, and it refers to the sour taste of the leaves. I'm glad you joined me to learn about the sourwood, and I hope you get the opportunity to get out into your woodland, local park, or neighborhood and enjoy the stunning sourwood.
Well, I can totally see why they call it lily of the valley tree.
Well,
I mean, it looks just like it.
aren't they beautiful? It really is. And gosh, and when you can see it like as a specimen tree, you can see they're just layered, those flowers layered over the leaves. It really stands out.
Yeah, it does.
I
And
can
then you
really
got,
see. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Witchy Boney's hand, or the
Yeah,
Boney.
I didn't get that until you said that
Yeah.
because at first I was like, witchy bone, what is that good? But yeah, I get it. I get it now. Yeah. Yeah.
It is,
So go ahead.
it is a great tree. And I was going to say, you've got the spring, the lovely spring, you've got the early summer flowers. If you're interested in attracting insects or providing for our insects out there, it's great. And then you got great fall color. I mean, you saw that. It is like one of those that they're like going, oh yeah, that's a good looking tree. So
Yeah. Someone wanted to know, how do you propagate these trees?
Well, I couldn't tell you on propagating. You can actually purchase seedlings, and I would probably, if you are thinking of putting one on your property, like as a specimen tree, I would actually get a containerized one to get some roots established, as opposed to putting one a little seedling right in the ground. They do, think about where they normally grow. They tend to favor a slightly more acidic type soil. But I see them in Lexington around in our neighborhoods, and we've got pretty clay soils, and they've done well here. But definitely try one out. It's a wonderful tree.
Oh, definitely.
I would say, yeah, Laurie, just to echo what you're saying, I've heard it's pretty challenging to propagate.
Right. The seeds are so small.
And taking cuttings is challenging as well.
Right.
So.
Yeah, you really have to have some knowledge doing cuttings and things like that. So it is a tree that is sold at a lot of our garden centers. I'm not sure I've seen it at like big box stores, but any of our garden centers would have that. And I'm not sure like, the Division of Forestry, if that one's on their list, but those would be seedlings then. But I'd for at least a container, get a somewhat of established root system.
And make sure when you plant it, you're not planting under something, right? Because they do get larger, right? So,
Right, exactly. Yeah, but make sure right tree, right place, and
Look up.
yeah, no, yeah.
Look up when you plant.
yeah, exactly.
So you don't have to cut it down later, right? Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Lori. We appreciate it. And it was an awesome presentation on sourwood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Very good.
All right. So next we have Pam Snyder. She is from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, and she is here to tell us a little bit about some tornado relief that they have now. Now, Pam, fill us in on this, though. One of the things is it's not for like the tornadoes we just had.
Correct. It is for the tornadoes that hit in December of 2021 and January of 2022. Basically, let me see if I can share my screen.
Go ahead.
See?
Gotcha.
Looks good.
Okay. All right, let me scroll down. There we go. Let me describe what we've developed. We have put together what we call a tornado strike team, which is usually they're put together for an emergency response. They're deployed as tactical units to significant incidents, so they can be applied to any type of emergency situation, such as a tornado or wildland fire. Again, this funding is for the Kentucky counties in the area where both those tornadoes went through in Western Kentucky. And as you can see with the map, these are the areas that have received the highest tornado damage at that time. We put together a grant through the USDA Forest Service, and that grant was for $3,750,000 to develop the strike team and also develop the Kentucky Natural Disaster Recovery Program. Now, what's very unique is this is not traditional cost share. There's 4 different programs that this funding is coming through within the U.S. Forest Service. Part of that is the Forest Stewardship Program, the Forest Health Program, and the Urban and Community, and the Kentucky Firewise Program. And I'll go back and describe a little bit about how this funding is being applied. So for landowners, homeowners, the forest landowners can get a forest stewardship plan written on their property that meets the management goals and implement practices for long-term sustainability. We're also going to recommend other USDA cost share programs such as riparian buffers, afforestation, reforestation, and forest stand improvement. The landowners can also borrow equipment and they, like a tree setter, and be trained on how to use it. Now, for the forest health protection program, we will be working with, the strike team will be working with forest landowners and homeowners to assess tree health by providing technical assistance concerning invasive species identification, management, and control. The team will conduct follow-up site visits as well, and they will perform surveys for invasive species, plants, diseases, using both aerial and ground monitoring. Now, for the Kentucky Firewise program, the homeowners can assess spaces and guiding species selection. And basically, if landowners are interested in working within a community can develop a community wildfire protection plan. And this protection plan actually allows for them to reduce wildfire risk on their property by creating defensible space around structures. The other program that is going to assist homeowners is with tree planting and assessing spaces and guiding species selection for communities on tree inventories and lead public workshops for tree stewards. And the team will host free distribution events in tornado affected areas. So basically how this workflow is going to happen is individuals, organizations, and communities can go sign up online through the Kentucky Natural Resource Disaster Tornado Recovery application. And that includes, it's a multiple use application. So it can be communities, community leaders, it can be fire departments, it can be homeowners, it can be forest landowners. It's, again, the application is for organizations also. And basically the strike team will have an assessment tool that they'll be able to utilize as part of the application process, an on-site visit that they will make, and they will determine which of the 4 programs best fits the technical assistance needs of those homeowners, individuals, organizations. And again, we're wanting to try to put technical forestry assistance on the ground to restore the forested landscape in Western Kentucky within the pathways of these tornadoes. So how do you go apply? And that's actually a couple different ways. You can use this HTTPS survey, or you can use the QR code listed, shown here, and go and apply online through the natural disaster. And this will allow us to be able to take your application, and then this starts the process of you working with the 4-member strike team. And their contact information is listed here. There is a forester and 3 ranger technicians on this strike team. There is a group email that individuals can contact. It's tornado.forestry@ky.gov, or they can be reached at the Madisonville branch office, which that number is 270-824-7527. And again, a lot of the work that the strike team will be doing is they will be actually assisting these organizations, landowners, homeowners on their property to help get this work done. So again, I mentioned This is not traditional cost share like most people are used to hearing about. So, is there any questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is an awesome opportunity for people to get some help with some
Yes.
devastating things that happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, seeing some of the damage over the years is, yes. I mean, thank you all, Pam, for, pursuing this and trying to make this available to help our woodland owners.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Take
Yeah.
advantage, folks.
Any questions?
Not seeing any.
You must have answered them all.
That's a great job with it.
Did a great job, Pam. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, thank you. And thanks for all you do. Really appreciate it.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Good stuff. Wow.
Lot of information today, Billy. It was packed cram full, like normal, but
Yeah.
but a lot of good information for for people to ponder about.
No doubt. We'll really appreciate Caroline Kane talking about honeybees and what we can do to kind of support them locally, right? In our own backyards or on our own property. She gave us a lot of great tips for that and was a first time guest. Glad to have her on there. Yeah. Appreciate Laurie with our tree of the week. Sourwood. What a beautiful native tree. A great option if you got room for it. And then we heard from Pam about the tornado strike efforts that they're trying to help landowners deal with. So yeah, a full program. As always, let us know if there's stuff you would like to see. Renee does an amazing job of tracking down guests and others to kind of cover some of those topics, but we really want to be useful to you all. Whatever you're dealing with on your own property or you're trying to help somebody on their own property, and when it deals with woodlands and wildlife, we want to be supportive of you. So let us know what you need, and we'll do our best to try to track down those resources for you.
Definitely. And one thing is, yes, we just got a question. They are always available after the fact within maybe 2 or 3 days. It depends. Sometimes, with vacations, it may be a week. But if you go to fromthewoodstoday.com, all of the sessions that we've ever had are there. And usually within a week, they will be posted. So we definitely try to do that. There's a lot of good information, and Billy just put that in the chat pod. So if you go to fromthewoodstoday.com, that will take you to that link that he just sent, and you will get all of I think 252 episodes that we've actually done. It's a lot of content. A lot of the trees that like today, there's a lot of trees. I think we have over 85 trees that are actually listed just like what Laurie did today. So, there's a lot of good information there.
Yeah. And while you're on there, take our little survey and let us know, how we're doing, but also really what you want to see. If you're dealing with something on your own property, there's a good chance others are. And if we can help you, we may be able to help others that are maybe struggling with some issue. So we want to be supportive. So let us know how we can be.
Exactly. All right. Until then, we will see you all next week, every Wednesday at 11. Don't forget.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
From the woods today. From the woods today.